Hi, everyone. I'm Colleen Stanley, and welcome to the Sales Leadership Awakening podcast, where we bridge the knowing and doing gap for sales leaders. And joining me today is my co-host, Stephen Rosen. And Stephen, I know we've got another great guest. I do not know how we keep finding these great guests. I'm so grateful we are. We're going to be talking about the topic of self-confidence. So I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce our guest.
I'd like to welcome Erika Glenn today. Thank you for joining us, Erika. Maybe you can tell our audience a bit about yourself, the company you're working for, and the type of salespeople that you lead.
My name is Erika Glenn. I am the Chief Growth Officer for Redox. Redox helps serve all health entities, whether it be early stage startup all the way through payers and providers with data, and making sure that the providers and the payers have that real-time information to make great decisions about the patient and member. And I oversaw a division. So at Redox, I have responsibility for about 75 folks, including everything from marketing, our SDRs or our sales development reps, our AEs and directors of sales, as well as a partnerships team and the entire CS team. Anybody that touches a client all the way from the point in time they're onboarded through the entire experience sits within my organization. We are absolutely in growth mode and really excited to see the payer provider market is a newer market for us. But the CEO, which I worked with at CVS, he came in October with a tremendous amount of payer knowledge and skill, and then brought me to the fold in April. So really excited to see the growth that we're going to experience at Redox.
So, Erika, one of our signature questions we always like to ask every guest is, with your big background, and you do have a big resume, was there ever a time where you had this sales leadership awakening moment? Any time when you changed course as a leader because of some increased awareness?
At a certain period of time when I was really ready to make that step up into a VP or really wanted to look forward to being more of a general manager, a division president, I essentially looked at where I was sitting. I had great relationships with my peers. I had wonderful numbers. Team was thriving, but I felt like I wasn't being heard and I couldn't quite figure out what to do to be heard because I was doing all the right things to make the right things happen. But in certain forums, I just didn't feel like I had a voice. And so I called up a executive leadership coach by the name of Heather Monahan. And I said to her, "Hey, Heather, I want to talk to you about working with you because I have articulation issues." And she said to me, "Erika, you don't have any articulation issues." She said, "You have confidence issues." And I said, "No, not me. I'm a strong female. I've done all these different things." And she has never been more right. I absolutely did. Just in behaviors and the way I was raised and taught to be very selfless, which was I was terrified of being arrogant. And so I went to this other side and dipped down into this other side of feeling of non-confidence. As that occurred, and I began recognizing the signs of underconfidence, it really allowed me to change the talk track to my sellers. There are different ways that it shows up. I just told you how mine was showing up. But I've come to some themes, both actually differently for females versus males. It was really an awakening for me on what I needed to do to level up, but also a really big leadership moment where I said, hey, I can't be the only one experiencing this. And as I listened to more and more sellers, really picking it out and being able to go back and talk to them and say, where do we need more education? What do we need to do here to make you more confident?
I think it's great. It shows a lot of confidence. This is one of your areas of passion for sure.
Did you know about executive coaches? Did somebody advise you to get an executive coach? What was the impetus behind picking up the phone?
I had been pretty active on LinkedIn. I had seen executive coaches. At the time, I believe I was in a program for general management and leadership executives. So I was in these training programs, but I really felt stuck. And I really
Okay.
didn't feel like I could get a non-biased opinion of why I was stuck. And so I wanted somebody that I paid for and I knew was going to give me a very unbiased opinion on what I needed to do to change. And so based upon LinkedIn and understanding more about coaching and then really feeling, okay, I got to do something different. I'm not exactly sure what this is, but I think this is a really good step. I need to find somebody that has been in sales leadership, that's wanted to do more, that's been where I've been and could potentially help me. And Heather Monahan delivered on all of those promises 100-fold and continues to deliver for me.
So can you share with our audience your definition of confidence is in sales? And it might seem obvious, but why is it so critical for salespeople to be confident to be successful?
So a definition of confidence is being able to comfortably have an open conversation. I always say I do not enjoy going and just presenting to folks. I enjoy sitting down and having a conversation. Needs to be a discussion. If you don't know the subject matter expertise well enough, or there are areas where you dip out and you feel like, I don't know what I'm talking about, a lot of sellers don't know how to work their way around it. It is totally okay to say, you know what? I don't have as much expertise in this area. Let me ask and come back to you, or make sure you have somebody, whether it be in the clinical realm, a clinician. Now I'm in the technical realm, a technical person to help give you that confidence, and then make sure that your story is very fluid together. But confidence really is being able to articulate well what you can do, the value proposition, differentiation, and how you can serve the client to meet their needs. And if you can't do that from a place of strength and you're constantly looking down and you're constantly fumbling with your hands and you're constantly all the nonverbal things, right? The client's going to pick up on it and they're not going to think that you have a solid product. And so it's really important to bestow confidence, but you also can't overdo it, because if you overdo it, that also is a turnoff for a lot of people.
So are there any tricks that you like? Preparation sounds like one of them. Two, saying that, let me get back to you so you don't get startled. Any other tricks that you use to help your salespeople become more confident?
I think part of it is you do have to teach them how to walk around the uncomfortable, because there are going to be uncomfortable moments that come up. And the way you teach that is a little different. It depends on the subject matter and how you can walk around. But a really good way is, help me understand that more. Ask more questions to articulate so that you can keep pivoting and walking around what you need to in order to get the client comfortable enough until you can get them more information and also remain confident in the conversation.
That's a really good tip. Thank you.
You're reminding me, and I was not even thinking about bringing this up. So you're in NASCAR country, right? Way back when I was in corporate, I was with a company and we were approaching the NASCAR market. We had never done any business there, but I had a rep that felt like our product line could be launched there. And so I go to the Charlotte Speedway and I was back in Ricky Rudd and Mark Martin. And I'm thinking, what are we doing here? So what we decided, we were going to walk into all these appointments and with confidence say two things. Number one, we know nothing about licensing with NASCAR. But number two, we know a lot about custom manufacturing. So we'll leave it up to you if you want to partner with us or take advantage of us. I will tell you, just having the confidence to admit we didn't know what we were doing, we walked out with licensing agreements.
I think there's something very real to that. And people that meet me will be like, wow, the realness. I don't have any issues. Now, corporately, a lot of people have issues, and I was definitely indoctrinated and taught, if you are transparent and real, that can be viewed as a weakness. It actually helps in the sale to be very real as to what you do or what you don't know, and just be honest. Obviously, you want to have a good foundation, but I think it's okay to say, I'm really well versed here, not over here. But here's a few things I can tell you, and let me go in this direction.
Yeah, it's what you said. I don't have the clinical, but I can bring in an expert. And from a leadership point of view, knowing that you had a self-discovery with yourself here, how would other leaders start spotting that it's a lack of confidence? Because I think with some of the research you've done and self-reflection, it can be disguised and look another way. But in actually what they're looking at is lack of confidence, not the observable behavior.
You heard me talk about more of the meek approach, where you don't stay as strong, your voice, the tone, the pitch, all those things drop down and you start looking down. So more of the subservient ways. But I have actually seen a lot of females, and this sounds so bad, but they go almost into more of a stage where they become almost a little bit ditzy. And it's because truly I have watched it happen to multiple females in sales, where they don't know what to do. They kind of panic, and then the pitch of their voice goes really high. I have seen that very commonly with females. With males, I see a lot of confidence issues being masked with arrogance. And so instead of it being able to admit the weakness, much more to an arrogance that actually really turns the client off a lot. Either one of those can cost you a sale just based upon the nonverbals, the strengths, because again, you are a reflection of the company and of the product. So if you're not able to come from a place of strength and talk about that product, the product doesn't stand a chance, no matter how good it is in market.
So what's the first step once you've identified, okay, this is the real issue? It's not lack of knowledge, skill. We might diagnose the wrong issue. And you're sitting there going, no, this is a lack of confidence. what would be the first step a sales leader would take to diagnose? And the second one is to start course correcting.
So it's such a good question. I had this happen at Redox when I first came in. I started listening to some client calls, and my sales leader said to me, "That person has a lack of confidence." I said, "Yep. What you going to do about it? Like, how are you going to fix it?" And he said, "I'm going to talk to them." And I said, "Nope, you're not." And he was like, "What do you mean? No, you're not?" I'm like, "You are not going to talk to them." I was like, "They are already suffering from, oh my gosh, I don't know this. I'm going to lose my job because I don't have confidence here." And so I said, and it really depends on the person, how much they can handle. So you as a leader have to realize that there's flexibility in the way you handle it. And there's different ways to give feedback. There are a number of messages that I send through LinkedIn when I see things happen from a seller's perspective. Then what typically happens is they come in and they'll say, "Hey, you know what? I have that problem. Can we talk about it?" There may be a process where you truly can sit down and say, "Hey, you know what? Like, I noticed this. And you know what? I've been there. And here are a couple of things that I did to try to change that." But again, the way that you handle it really depends on that person, where they are, and the way that you can best get across without realize that you as a leader have the ability to hurt them more than you do help them.
It's interesting because one of our other podcasts, I shared a story of a client who the reps, their heads would go down to their chest whenever they were struck with the same objection. We worked to help them because one of the realizations is sometimes your body language gives you away. If you're not, head up, shoulders back, chest out, not being arrogant, but just being, that body language that communicates confidence. If you're hit with something, great question, as opposed to, oh my God, great question. Because those visibles show, like the client, whether they consciously or subconsciously. But as you were talking about coaching somebody, and I'm very big into how do you coach salespeople, and would love to understand how you coach your sales leader to help them build rep confidence and maintain their confidence. Because when you're hitting rejection on an ongoing basis, especially, for example, SDRs, that's an area that could be very difficult if you lack confidence to even survive.
Yeah. So to coach my sales leader depends on the sales leader once again as to the things that are most effective. It also depends on their personality because you can have a little spitfire that's going to go back and be like, bam, and it will hurt them. Or you can have somebody that has more of a calming personality, which different measures work that way, but they may also not hit it as hard as they need to. So it is a balance to understand that sales leader, how the sales reps actually respond to that sales leader and coach them to coach the others in the appropriate way. So it's really about knowing the personalities of your sellers and the personalities of your leaders and how best to combine them to truly build that high performing team.
Okay. So for our listeners, can you share a situation that you've coached someone in a very specific situation and how you went about?
I had a sales director and she was another underconfident one, but so unbelievably and incredibly smart and talented, tons of potential. But she felt like she needed to be perfect in everything she did, every word she said. If she had a meeting set up the next day, she would completely lose it, just lose it. And this woman had been doing these presentations for many years. So it wasn't like she was a new sales rep. It wasn't like the content was new. Part of what was really effective with her is going back and saying, "I got you. Yes. I know you have this. Here's the subject matter. Here's what you need to be able to discuss." And I would present in front of her multiple times. And she would say to me, "Can you just present one more time? Can you take this client and will you present so I can listen? And then I can change it to what works best for me and be able to take it and reflect and teach others." And so a lot of times it's what they need and what they need to hear. A big thing has been me going first. Nobody wants to go first with a new product coming out of the gate, anything like that. I am the first one to raise my hand and say, I am totally okay with making a complete idiot out of myself. You're not going to tell exactly like I tell it because I have a different approach than you do. And if you try to mimic my approach, it's going to sound ridiculous. So you all have to find your own words, but you can at least see the story and how I create the story. And then you take it, you make it your own, and let's move forward.
So a lot of it is practice, as you're saying, and having a good leader that will role model the behavior so you can see what great looks like.
The fun part with that particular director is she came back. We ended up introducing a lot of additional products after that point, and I could call her the day before and be like, "Hey, there's this new product coming out. and I can't do this presentation, but she could do it. Once she had the building blocks and figured out how to do it, then she could step up and take the building blocks and say, okay, I have this, and here's what I know, and here's what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to set it up, and here's the differentiation, here's the value, and bam. So it was through asking questions, but we got her comfortable after many years of having to prep for 3, 4 days in a row in front of the mirror and practicing, where she literally could just go on the fly if she needed to and have that conversation.
Fantastic development. So coaching certainly helps. Colleen, do you have any key takeaways from today in our very interesting conversation about self-confidence?
There were about three things. Number one, the modeling. And we all know it. We've heard the pithy quotes. People watch what you do. The second thing I'm fascinated by, and I think it's one of your superpowers, I suspect you are really good on really doing individualized coaching. Okay, this person needs this person needs this. Like when you talked about what's the sales leader need and what's the salesperson need and combining those, that's a talent. All of us know everyone needs to be coached in different ways. The fact that you take the time to model it, but very individualized approach, easier said than done.
That's fantastic. So for me, what I thought was really insightful was being open and honest about maybe we don't know something, and the transparency and being real in sales and being honest. I think part of the challenge many salespeople face is there's a reluctance from the client in terms of, are they telling me the real story? Can I trust them? Are they an advisor? And I think it's not to show that you're weak, but it's to be honest and say, hey, you know what? I don't know this, but I'll bring you an individual that can help. So for me, that was really good insight to someone who may lack the confidence. It's okay to say, can I get back to you on this, and make a note and follow up and get back. And I think that's the genuine part of sales. I think has a lot of merit as opposed to rambling off an answer that you say with a confidence. There's no substance there. So Erika, I want to thank you. I know you're passionate about this and keep being passionate about helping people become more self-confident, because they're going to do better in their careers, they're going to make more money, and they're going to feel better about themselves. And as we wrap up another insightful episode, and I think there's some really good insights here, we hope that you've enjoyed the Sales Leadership Awakening podcast and that you've gathered some strategies and some coaching approaches to bridge that gap between knowing we have to help our people be more confident and actually doing it. Thank you once again. And thank you, Colleen. It's been fun.
Yeah, thanks, Erika.